Let's start a clapping kirtan. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Veshatarine Namaste Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Let's all say Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Srila Prabhupada Ki. Welcome back, Prabhus. I hope more come, but we have an intimate group. Srila Prabhupada's well-known desire that we cooperate to spread Krishna consciousness to every town and village was more than a farewell request as he was preparing to leave this world. It was a theme he voiced continually during his 12 years of non-stop preaching round the globe. Yet in spite of Prabhupada's mandate that we work together, cooperation can be hard to find in the age of quarrel, where non-cooperation too often prevails. In this key lesson on cooperation, we'll see up close why cooperation can be so elusive, as well as what we can do to foster it. So I chose this slide because this is San Francisco Rath Yatra 1974, famous picture taken by our Vishaka Devi. And there are some very strong-minded people in this photo, leaders, sannyasis, temple presidents, and they don't necessarily get along by nature. But with Prabhupada at the center there, especially this ecstatic occasion, there they are, immersed in kirtan ras, the safest place to be in the material world. You may have seen the movies too, where when Prabhupada does that, when he raises his arms, everybody raises their arms and they start jumping out of their skins. And even the 10,000 strong people in Golden Gate Park who weren't even devotees, as soon as they saw Prabhupada raise his arms, they raised their arms. So that's Prabhupada's potency. Okay, to love is to cooperate. Here there's Tamal Krishna Maharaj, Tripurari Maharaj, Guru Kripa Maharaj, Bhavadak Prabhu, Tulsi Das Prabhu, Jayatirtha Prabhu. Anyway, they're all leaders, and they all have very different natures. But with Prabhupada at the center, they're happy. Okay. Yeah. By May 1977, Srila Prabhupada's health had been declining for months. It was time to return to Vrindavan, India, his quote, home, as he called it, to recover or to depart. When his secretary suggested he make a will, Prabhupada agreed. For 7 years, Srila Prabhupada had been training the members of ISKCON's governing body commission to manage the society after his departure. To help them feel the gravity of that responsibility, Prabhupada requested they all come to Vrindavan to witness the will. Quote, because they love you, said his secretary, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, I'm sure they will all want to come and be with you. Prabhupada's reply was grave. Who's got the... All right, let's start us off.
Your love for me, said Srila Prabhupada, will be shown by how much you cooperate to keep this institution together after I'm gone.
So Prabhupada, Tamal Krishna Maharaj had been very upbeat and blissful, and Prabhupada just looked at him and said gravely that, which became a famous quote, enshrined in many temples. Notwithstanding Prabhupada's statement, cooperation can be elusive in our age of quarrel. To see why, as well as what we can do to foster cooperation, we will sample Prabhupada's words on the subject, which reveal a simple yet challenging logic. So what follows is a kind of, that term dialectic. There's thesis, antithesis, synthesis, or point, counterpoint, resolution, however you want to put it. And so Prabhupada's thesis is cooperate. Despite Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's order that his leading disciples, quote, work conjointly, and, quote, without any quarrel, after his demise, their non-cooperation fragmented the Gaudiya mission and later disqualified most of them from helping Prabhupada revive it in the West. Determined that non-cooperation not similarly spoil his ISKCON, Prabhupada often defined and tested his disciples' devotion in terms of their willingness to work together. Quote, when you do something in cooperation with the Lord, that is called bhakti. So he defines bhakti as a willingness to cooperate. And, quote, the test of our actual dedication and sincerity to serve the spiritual master will be in this mutual cooperative spirit, to push on this movement and not make factions and deviate, which is kind of the human condition. If I don't get my way, I stalk off mad and either just isolate or try to make my own thing. So that's not helpful. If Prabhupada's thesis is to cooperate, then what is his antithesis, his philosophical contrast? Okay. Yeah. Okay, cooperate, but don't expect utopia. Don't expect it's going to be easy, right? Everybody's smiling and everybody gets along. No, that's not the way it works. A couple of years after Prabhupada had formed the GBC, one of its members wrote to complain that impersonal dealings were dividing his colleagues. Prabhupada disagreed. Go ahead.
It is not so much that there may be some fault in our God brothers and God sisters, or because there may be some mismanagement or lack of cooperation, that this is due to being impersonalist. No, it is the nature of the living condition to always have some fault.
Ooh.
Even in the spiritual world there is some fault and envy. But it is not the same as material fault or material envy. It is transcendental, because it is all based on Krishna. Sometimes when one gopi would serve Krishna very nicely, the others would say, "Oh, she has done so nicely. Now let me do better for pleasing Krishna." That is envy. But it's transcendental, without malice.
Ooh, that's like unheard of, right? Envy without malice. But you don't find that in the material world. Envy means basically hate, and I'm going to cut you down. So this is transcendental envy. So Gopi does, oh, okay, she's done so nicely serving, now let me do better. It's like a mutual competition to please Krishna. Krishna is the center of it. It's not a mutual tearing down. It's a spiral upward, not a spiral down. Okay, go ahead.
So we shall not expect that anywhere there is any utopia. Rather, that is impersonalism.
That's impersonalism.
Because devotees are persons, therefore there will always be some lacking. But the difference is that their lackings have become transcendental because their topmost intention is to serve Krishna.
So then the letter goes on, and Prabhupada, he just really wants to make sure that his disciple, who's serving as a GBC himself, Treya Rishi Prabhu from Iran, gets it. So listen to this. This is how Prabhupada ends the letter. The devotees of Krishna are the most exalted persons on this planet. Better than kings, all of them. So he's telling Treya, look, don't stop criticizing them, stop dissing them as being impersonalists. No, they're better than kings. So we should always remember that, and like the bumblebee, always look for the nectar, or the best qualities of a person. Not like the utopians, who are like the flies, who always go to the open sores or find the faults in a person. And because they cannot find any utopia, or because they cannot find anyone without faults, they want to become void, merge, nothing. They think that is utopia, to become void of personality. So it was like, in judo, how you use your opponent's negative energy against him, you turn it around. So Prabhupada's taking that negativity from Maitreya, and he's challenging him to see his godbrothers in a new light. Be a bee, not a fly. See the best and not the worst. So, if Prabhupada's thesis, let's see here, I think maybe we've got to look at that. Because Prabhupada said at one point, there's always some fault, even in the spiritual world, there's conflict. Look at the bottom picture, they're all pure devotees there, and they're fighting. Krura has come from Mathura to take Krishna and Balaram away. This is the Leela, the killing of Kamsa. But the gopis are saying, it's like, over our dead bodies you are. You're not taking Krishna and Balaram out of Vrindavan. Forget it. So, Akrura is a pure devotee, and the gopis are pure devotees, but they're in conflict. But the center is Krishna. So it's transcendental. Okay, so if Prabhupada's thesis is to cooperate and his antithesis not to expect utopia, then what is his synthesis, his resolution? Well, you've heard it before, but we're going to try to find out what it means more. There it is. Okay. Yes. So that was a Treya Rishi in February 72. And then in October 73, another GBC wrote Prabhupada, Kirtanananda Maharaj, and also reported there's dissension among the ranks. There's fighting at the highest levels of management. So you see how Prabhupada handles this. When yet another GBC man wrote to inform Prabhupada of dissension in the ranks, Prabhupada's response was philosophical and proactive. Okay. Who's got the mic? Okay.
The materialist cannot come into agreement with varieties, but if we keep Krishna in the center...
What's going on with the sound?
Somebody's phone.
Who? Are all the phones off? Put your phones off. Don't expect utopia, folks.
I read it again.
Yes.
The materialist cannot come into agreement with the varieties, but if we keep Krishna in the center, then there will be agreement in varieties. This is called unity in diversity. I am therefore suggesting that all our men meet in Mayapur every year.
He didn't just say the GBC either. And he said men, but in the way Prabhupada is raised, men includes women. It doesn't just mean males. Okay, read the next. Oh, it's a continuation of the same sentence.
Okay.
All our men.
Every year,
In Dutch is the same thing.
during the birth anniversary of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, with all GBC and senior men present, we should discuss how to make unity in diversity.
All right. It's been sloganized to death. Yes, Prabhus, we need unity and diversity, but it's not easy. As Prabhupada knew, and time has shown us, finding unity in diversity is an ongoing challenge. So let's explore how to do that. So at least we know theoretically how to approach it. Okay.
Unity around principles.
Unite.
Unite around principles, diversify the details.
Unite around principles and diversify the applications, the details. Since achieving unity and diversity is the key to cooperation, Prabhupada's measure of our love for him, we need to dig deeper into his life, teachings, mood, and mission to find it. We need to identify timeless, universal principles whose details will vary according to, quote, country, time, and candidate.
The teacher, Acharya, has to consider time, candidate, and country. What is possible in one country may not be possible in another. The Acharya's duty is to accept the essence of devotional service. It is not necessary that the rules and regulations followed in India be exactly the same as those in Europe, America, and other Western countries. What is required is a special technique according to country, time, and candidate.
Yeah, I've referred to this before, CC Madhya 23-105, but I really encourage you to look at that purport, and also Bhagavatam 4.8.54, and you see how the same Prabhupada who said impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary in another context, in connection with 17 books in 2 months publishing, he said here it's not possible to do what's possible in one country may not be possible in another. So don't try to force a round peg into a square, a round hole, round peg into a square hole, yeah, something like that. Okay, I'm sure Urmila Prabhu will talk about that too. Of course, even if the acharyas, because then Prabhupada, he made this kind of mysterious, he says, what is required is a special technique according to country, time, and candidate. So what does that mean, a special technique? Of course, even if the acharya's special technique proves effective for spreading Krishna consciousness, advanced devotees may still disagree on the details of applying universal principles. So now we're going deeper. So principles and details. This is all in the service of figuring out how to cooperate, or finding that cooperation which eludes us. For example, while receiving a massage from his assistant one day, Prabhupada remarked, so this is October 72, Shruti Kirti and Srila Prabhupada are in Manila, the Philippines. And so the backstory is this, that in March of the same year, 72, Prabhupada broke ground for the Mayapur project. Tamal Krishna Maharaj and others had secured the land. Prabhupada had the deed in the previous fall, and then by March, Prabhupada's ready to break ground, And so he invited a lot of godbrothers from the former, Gaudiya mission. And they were all, carrying on individually in their own mutts. And a lot of them came to see what Swami Maharaj was up to. Some of them had even tried to prevent Prabhupada from getting the land. I don't know if those godbrothers came, but anyway, there's pictures you might have seen, pictures of Prabhupada breaking ground. You see him going down into the pit to install an Antashesh. So on the one hand, they appreciated what Swami Maharaj was doing, because it wasn't a big festival. The first big was in '74, but I mean there were Western disciples there. You know, Prabhupada had miraculously changed Mlechas and Yavadas into aspiring Vaishnavas. So, on the one hand, they appreciated that. On the other hand, they had some complaints. So the complaints were, why are you letting them call you Prabhupada? This is for our Guru Maharaj and Rupa Goswami and, you know, that kind of person. So Prabhupada said, Brahmananda Maharaj, get my stationery. So Brahmananda brought a piece of stationery, and there on his stationery, his own personal stationery, it said, Tridanda Goswami, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. No Prabhupada there. So I'm not calling myself Prabhupada, but of course, as we know from 1968, when Govinda Dasi said, we need three, so which one is the best? And Prabhupada said, Srila Prabhupada is the best. So Prabhupada did allow us to call him that. And so Prabhupada, you know, he couldn't, at least he wasn't calling himself Prabhupada that. And then he told us later, you know, for all their complaints, because he had to start a fresh branch. He had to be our Prabhupada. He had to be the founder Acharya, and he had to be the master at whose feet all gurus sit, because he knew there was going to be a multiple guru culture after he left. And he still had to be the center. So he told us, you know, for all their complaints, they haven't advanced Mahaprabhu's movement 1 inch. They just sit in their mutts, you know. And anyway, they kind of dropped that because they had a bigger complaint. Swami Maharaj, why are you allowing men and women to serve together in your temples? Don't you know? Of course Prabhupada knew. What Narada Muni is telling Maharaj Yudhishthira in the 7th canto of Bhagavatam, and it is a principle. The principle is the man is like a butter pot and the woman is like fire, and you put the butter pot too close to the fire and the butter's going to melt. That's a principle. It's a law of nature. Can't. And of course, in our temples, it's not free for all. There's etiquette, but we are serving together, and Prabhupada called it double power. So Prabhupada tried to explain to them, look, when I came to the West, which they weren't willing to do, when I came to the West, what did I find? From the time they're toddlers, they're freely mixing. Then they go to the same schools. They're educated together and educated the same way. You know, from K through 12 and up through university. And so, you know, what's he supposed to do? Deny half the human race access to the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? No. And had scandalous things happened? Yes, scandalous things had already happened from the start. From, you know, 2nd Avenue and Haight-Ashbury and you know, scandalous things were happening and scandalous things would happen. But Prabhupada is operating in a higher principle than the fire butter principle. He knows that, and he knows the risks he's taking, and he knows things would happen. But he's determined to spread Krishna consciousness to every town and village, or to every continent at least, to spread it all over the world. And he knows that this is going to require the men and the women. And you'll see this more even later as it goes on. So, yeah. Okay, so that's the backstory. In March. Now, Srila Prabhupada, as servants like Abhiram Prabhu and Srila Kirti and Hari Shari and Tamal Krishna Maharaj would say sometimes in their memories, Prabhupada had a way of starting a conversation, and then something else would come up, and that conversation would take a different turn. It would break. It was like a break in a tape or something, then it was on to something else. But then Prabhupada, he had a way of coming back to the conversation and picking it up right in practically the same sentence he'd left off. He remembered where he was. So anyway, there they are. Srila Kirti was there in March, with Prabhupada. He witnessed the whole thing. And there they are in Manila, 7 months later. And here's what happens. Prabhupada picks up the conversation from March. This fly, I guess he really wants to hear too, huh? Okay. Okay, so we started by this slide. While receiving a massage from his assistant one day, Prabhupada remarked. So who's got the mic?
Yes.
Okay, there you go.
On principles and details.
Oh, wait a minute. I guess I got to read first. Okay, just hang in there, Prabhu. I'll be with you in a sec. So Prabhupada starts by saying, "My godbrothers criticize me." He just said it apparently out of the blue, but he's picking up from March. "My godbrothers criticize me that I have allowed women to live in our temples. This is not done in India." Okay. This is not done in India. "But I have become successful because I made this adjustment." For Prabhupada, it was an adjustable detail. It wasn't a principle. Or at least it was a lower principle. The fire butter thing. "I have become successful because I made this adjustment. I have combined the men and the women to live together in the same temples, the same communities, the same projects." He's attributing that to he's attributing his success to that. Whoa. All right. And now we have Ramananda Prabhu.
In the silence that followed, his assistant,
Wait a minute. Is our phone on again? You got a phone, Prabhu? Is it on? Just turn it on. It's messing with the mic.
In the silence that followed, his assistant, Shrutakirti Prabhu, felt compelled to ask, "Prabhupada, how can we tell the difference between making an adjustment and changing a principle?"
Ooh, there's the $108 million question, right? Which is another source of most of our disagreements in ISKCON. What's an unchangeable principle and what's an adjustable detail? No small thing to know that. Yeah, the way Shrutakirti tells it, and what is the difficulty? He said, "I was behind Prabhupada and I was massaging him. And Prabhupada's, he's facing away, so I couldn't see his expressions. So I asked that question that you see there. How can we tell the difference between making an adjustment and changing a principle?" And he's massaging this. And then Prabhupada doesn't answer right away. And he doesn't see Prabhupada's expression. He just hears, You hear sometimes Prabhupada say that, So the suspense is building, right? Finally, after several minutes had passed, no, just keep, anyway, go ahead.
Prabhupada closed his eyes as Shrutakirti continued to rub his body. Finally, he opened his eyes and responded, "That requires a little intelligence."
That's got to be the understatement of the Yuga, right? A little intelligence? I mean, his godbrothers, who were more advanced than us, by culture and knowledge of the Shastra, they didn't get it. But Prabhupada got it. That requires a little intelligence. And then I say, a little intelligence and a lot of heart. Because he's determined to give everybody access to the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's the higher principle. In his commentary to Sri Chaitanya Chaitamrita Adi Leela, chapter 7, text 37, Prabhupada describes the compassionate intent of such intelligence. Quote, an acharya should devise a means by which people may somehow or other come to Krishna consciousness. First they should become Krishna conscious, and all the prescribed rules and regulations may later gradually be introduced. Just like he did at 26 2nd Avenue. As I've mentioned, they were chanting to get high, because that was their goal. So the preaching was, stay high forever, no more come downs. Did I tell you what Howard Hayagriva said to Swamiji one day in the storefront? Did I mention this? No? Okay. So, so Prabhupada, he got 26 2nd Avenue on July 1st. They walked in a caravan from, the Bowery to where he had been, caravan with his belongings, and they got to 26 2nd Avenue. The deal had been sealed with Mr. Gardiner. He got the storefront and the apartment behind it for a bargain rate. Prabhupada was always expert at bargaining. And so from July, August, September, there was the first initiation. So Howard became Hayagriva, right? But still, he hadn't posted the rules and regulations yet, right? He did that November 25th. So Howard, or Hayagriva, said, did you ever see Swamiji by the way? Did you ever see Hayagriva? Did you ever see a film of him? Or he was a very large-bodied person, very big, and he had big, Prabhupada said, Shakespearean locks. He had a big booming voice. He was an English teacher at Ohio State. Swamiji, I've been chanting Hare Krishna for 3 months, and I still haven't seen the universal form. That's how he talked to Prabhupada. It's very professorial and critical intelligence. So, so this was a classic. Prabhupada knew how to respond to anything, That's all right, you keep chanting. Keep chanting, right? It'll go away, Because he was expecting some psychedelic vision, so haven't seen the universal. That's why they were chanting. Okay. So that summer they were just chanting. So Prabhupada got them attached to the chanting and the prasadam. And then, when Wali Sheffi, who became Umapati, when he approached Swamiji on November 24th, what do you say the rules are to this club? What's this practice? Very good boy. I thought you'd never ask. Very good boy. And then Prabhupada posted the rules. So Prabhupada, in doing that, he wasn't being, compromising. Prabhu, you're watering the philosophy down. He was following Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami's policy was, Yena tena prakarena mana Krishna niveshaye sarve viddhina shedhasyor etayore vakinkaraham. Yena tena, somehow or other. Get them to be Krishna conscious. Get their minds on Krishna. Come in. You're all welcome. Thank you. Fix their minds on Krishna. Sarve vidhi, all the vidhis, all the rules and regulations of Shastra. should be maidservants, should serve this highest principle of making them Krishna conscious. Don't make the rules first. Don't make the taboos first. Stress the positives, and then when you stress the higher taste, then the lower taste goes away. Albeit gradually, as I... Come on, Mr. Fly. Yeah, so that's Prabhupada's policy. Okay. For instance, in Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's Gaudiya mission, here's an example of adjusting things. Many devotees used to chant 64 rounds of the Hare Krishna mantra on their beads. Now I thought that everybody in the Gaudiya Math chanted 64. That's what I thought, because I'd heard that. Prabhupada said that. But it wasn't like that. How many rounds did Prabhupada chant, you know? 16 rounds. Because he was a full-time, he was a householder with family and work responsibilities. So he, for the householders working full-time, 16. For the full-time preachers who were out in the field, also 16. It was only for the mutt devotees, the people who stayed back at the temple. Their sacrifice was taking care of the mutt, which is a very important responsibility, but also they had this, they had more time, so they chanted 64. And then, do you know how Prabhupada chanted his 16 rounds? Maharishari is told. 4, 4, 4, 4. He chanted 4 when he got up. He wouldn't let himself eat breakfast until he had chanted 4 more. He wouldn't take his midday meal until he had chanted 4 more. And then he wouldn't take his supper until he had chanted 4 more. So in this way, 4, 4, 4, 4. That's what he told Harishara. Okay, now, so on the eve of the first initiation, when they were stringing their beads at 26 2nd Avenue, there were no beads. They went to Tandy's bead shop around the corner and got these big colored beads, and they bought some string, and they were, Prabhupada showed them, just make it, you know, and they were beads with holes in them. So then they had to put the string through the holes and then knot it after each bead. So they were homemade beads. Nobody knew about Tulsi beads or going to India yet. It was just brand new. So then, while they were stringing their beads, Prabhupada, Swamiji told them, so in my spiritual master's mission, many devotees used to chant 64 rounds. And then, I write here, despite Prabhupada suggesting fewer rounds to his first followers, because when he said that, then he said, but I think you can just chant 32. And then the devotees were like, what? that would take all day, you know. And then Prabhupada said, then 25. And still they were like, what? This is too much. They still looked perplexed after Prabhupada said 25. That would take forever. Prabhupada then declared 16 rounds daily, the rock bottom minimum for his initiated disciples. So that's where it comes from. Prabhupada shooting high and then coming down to 16. When one of those early initiates, so 3 years later, Brahmananda, who became the first temple president at ISKCON, the first TP in New York City, 26 2nd Avenue, when one of those early initiates later asked Prabhupada why he had asked them to chant so many rounds, then reduce the number, this is in the book called Swamiji, that Brahmananda wrote with Satyaraj, then reduce the number, Prabhupada replied that he was, quote, experimenting to see what the devotees could actually do. To determine a principle's practical application, a detail, Prabhupada would often try something out and then palena parachiyate, judge by the result. And if the result was good, then he kept it. And if the result wasn't good, he stopped it. Have I talked to you about our rock opera project? Have I talked to you about the In God We Trust Party for Purified Leaders? So in ISKCON's history in the 70s, in the early 70s, there were two initiatives that Prabhupada allowed because it was in us. We came from the counterculture and we had rock operas. The Who from England had Tommy, that was a rock opera. And there were others. And many of us in the counterculture had been politically very active, protest. So we wanted to do an alternative political party. And Prabhupada, he said, okay, let's give it a try. So in both cases, he let us try it, but then when it got out of hand, when it became counterproductive to the main thrust of his mission, which is book production and distribution, deity worship, and well, as we know, there were attempts, rural community development, festivals. When it became counterproductive to the main activities, then he would stop it. So in the case of the rock opera, it started in New Vrindavan, and then the troupe went down south for the winter, and then the leader who was leading it had to leave the party because New Vrindavan was falling apart in his absence, so he had to go back to New Vrindavan to save it. And then a new leader came in, but he was not as disciplined. He wasn't the disciplinarian the first leader had been. And this rock opera had men and women serving together in the party. So it was fun, and it was spreading Krishna consciousness in a dynamic new way. It was drama and music and playing college campuses and churches and venues that the devotees hadn't been. It wasn't chanting on the streets. It was an expansion. It was more than that. And Prabhupada liked that. But then what happened was, when after the new leader came in after some months, it got kind of loose between the men and the women. Prabhupada nipped it, stopped it. After the new leader felt that the project had run its course, he said, Srila Prabhupada, we found some land in Long Island. We'd like to settle down with the troupe and make a yoga village. And there's nothing wrong with it, with that idea. But Prabhupada, knowing his disciples and their level of maturity, or lack of it, said, no, better you don't do that. This will become another hippie addition. Because we came from the counterculture where there was all kinds of intentional communities springing up, and most of them, were unprincipled. So he stopped it. And in the case with the In God We Trust Party for Purified Leaders, devotees are running for office. Balavanta ran for mayor of Atlanta, Amarendra ran for mayor of Gainesville, Nalini Kanta ran for mayor of Tucson, and Damodar ran for Congress in DC. And because Amarendra, I was serving in Gainesville at the time, where Amarendra was the TP, and he had been a real radical, protester in the 60s. And he had the scars to prove it from the cops where he had been clubbed. So anyway, he was running for mayor of Gainesville. And somehow Gainesville became the center of the meetings. Rupanuga Maharaj at the time was the sannyasi kind of overseer of the party. And you can hear recordings where Prabhupada's bragging about, we have our In God We Trust Party for Purified Leaders, and they're getting on television and radio and public events, and they're appearing, and Prabhupada said, suit, tie, and tilak and flag. Talked about the shikha, flag. Tilak and flag. And they're preaching, what are they? They're preaching the regulative principles. Now, if you want purified leaders, they have to be principled people. You can't expect good policies to come from low-class people. So then the first election cycle came around. And like in Gainesville, there was a field of 6 candidates running for mayor. There was the incumbent, and then 5 other parties, and we were the In God We Trust party. And then the election happened, and we didn't win, but we didn't come in last either. We were the 5th in a field of 6. Number 6, the party that got the least votes was the Libertarian Party, which was a kind of anarchist party. We don't need a mayor, no government. So, nobody won anything. So even though Prabhupada, he liked the preaching, then Rupanuga wrote a letter to Prabhupada and said, Srila Prabhupada, and the BBT was funding this. There was a grant from the BBT because Prabhupada thought it was a good idea. We're going to get in the media and exposure. For the next election cycle, for the next campaigns, we need a $30,000 grant from the BBT. And so, which in 1970s, $30,000, worth a lot more now. So Prabhupada said, no, enough is enough. We don't mind getting the post, winning, but not at the cost of our God consciousness. Because what had happened was, in Gainesville, for example, I remember the day when Rupanuga's chief whip, this devotee, this brahmachari, whom will remain anonymous, he said, Prabhus, today we are no longer ISKCON Gainesville. We are Gainesville, in God we trust. And so it wasn't just a formal change of name. It was like the book distribution suffered, the deity worship suffered, the round suffered. We were becoming political animals, just going around with clipboards, and we were losing it because we were too immature. There's nothing wrong per se. I mean, in 2020 we had a devotee running for president of the United States, Tulsi Gabbard. Nothing per se wrong about being in politics, but you have to know how to handle it. Yeah. So Prabhupada would try things. And when he saw, we couldn't handle it, he stopped it. And then we were actually so relieved when Prabhupada stopped it. We were out in, where were we? Yeah, we were actually out on traveling Sankirtan. We were out there. And then Amarendra called and said, come on home, boys, we're going to have a party. We're going to celebrate. Prabhupada just stopped the In God We Trust party. So we all came home and had a big celebration that we're back to being ISKCON Gainesville. Yeah. Okay, so let's go to, we're getting toward the end here. And humility helps. Okay. At one point, while instructing Sanatana Goswami, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stopped to marvel at his humble disciple. So this is from CC Madhya 2105. Quote, this is Lord Chaitanya. Since you possess Lord Krishna's potency, you certainly know these things, because Sanatan's asking him questions, right? Sanatan Shiksha. And Lord Chaitanya is answering, but then Lord Chaitanya kind of calls a time out and he says, since you possess Lord Krishna's potency, you certainly know these things. However, it is the nature of a sadhu to inquire. Although he knows these things, the sadhu inquires for the sake of strictness. Now, Prabhupada did not purport that verse, but in New York on the 11th of July, 76, he did give an oral purport. And here's a little excerpt. Quote, a sadhu, a saintly person, Although he knows everything, still he remains very humble and tries to confirm from the higher authorities. I think this is right. Is it not right? He knows it is all right, but still he waits for the higher authorities to confirm it. Unquote. Strict, now I say, strict in remembering their absolute smallness, strict in never presuming they know everything. Humble devotees are always glad to hear from one another. Not just Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or Prabhupada. Anybody who is serious and sincere, they want to hear their perspective. And to see each other as Prabhus or masters. Because they trust one another's intentions, they are happy to cooperate, even if they sometimes disagree. So we're going to give the last word to Prabhupada on cooperation. There is audio for this, but there must have been I cut it out because there's an annoying buzz that must have been built. It must have been a bad mic that they were using. And here's the context for this quote. So there's Mayapur, there's Prabhupada in Mayapur, and there's a young Yadavar fanning Mayapur. There's a younger Brahmananda Swami, with his back to us and his staff. That's a young Panchadravida Swami. So anyway, in 75, at what we used to call a Christmas marathon, Tamal Krishna Maharaj's Radha Damodar brahmacharis had the most successful brahmachari party. 100 brahmacharis in multiple buses and vans covering America. They won the marathon. They beat LA. So, and Prabhupada was always inciting the competition. So, as a reward to his men, he said, okay, men, we're all going to Mayapur now for the 76th festival. And I'll see to it that you all get personal darshan of Srila Prabhupada in his rooms in the Lotus Building in Mayapur. And that's not a big room, that darshan room, but they all somehow crammed in. And so, of course, Prabhupada appreciated their service, but you know what he made the theme of his welcoming them, his talk? It was all about cooperation. Yeah, he didn't just pat them on the back and ask them how they did it. And I mean, he used to do that too. He always loved to hear from the book distributors what they're saying and how it worked, and But in this case, in the Holy Dham, Prabhupada talked about cooperation. Who's got the mic? All right. Here we go.
To love is to cooperate. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is God himself, Krishna himself. He felt alone, unable to do this task. He felt. So this is the position. You are cooperating, therefore I am getting the credit. Otherwise, alone, what could I do? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself wanted our cooperation. He is God, Krishna. And therefore, cooperation is a very important thing. Nobody should think that I have got so great ability I can do. No, it is simple. By cooperation, we can do
It is simply.
It's simpler.
Simply
by cooperation, we can do very big thing. United, we stand. Divided, we fail. Fall. Sankirtan means many men combined together, chanting. That is Sankirtan. Otherwise, Kirtan. Sankirtan means many combined together. That is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission.
Yeah. And he also gave the example of the bundle of sticks. Bundle of sticks. It was an Aesop's fable, I think. You can easily take a stick out and break it, but you can't break the bundle because there's strength in numbers. So that's why Prabhupada wanted us to stick together despite all our differences. And it's not easy to find unity in diversity and know a principle from a detail, know a higher principle from a lower principle. But that's how we find unity in diversity. Okay, let's go to the learning outcomes. And we do have 25 minutes until Aarti. Who's going to read the learning outcomes? Go ahead.
Lesson 8 to love is to cooperate learning outcomes, but now we should be able to recall what Srila Prabhupada said would be the proof of our love for him after he departed this world. Explain why Srila Prabhupada said we shouldn't expect utopia. Identify what Srila Prabhupada meant by unity in diversity. Explain what it means to unite around principles and diversify details. Recall how Srila Prabhupada determined relative application of a universal principle. Recall why Srila Prabhupada said cooperation was so important for spreading Krishna consciousness.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So with those learning outcomes in mind, any questions, comments, reflections? Yes. Is it bright enough in here? I guess, oh, the curtain's closed, I see. It's okay. Is it okay for you, for your? Okay.
So the full statement is, your love will be shown to me, how you cooperate in spreading Krishna consciousness.
To keep this institution together.
To keep this institution together.
After I'm gone.
With the goal of spreading Krishna consciousness.
There's actually two statements, and they both say, so you might be combining two. The first, Prabhupada said one, after Tamal said that, oh, I'm sure they'll come, Srila Prabhupada, they love you so much. And then Prabhupada said, it was on the slide. Let's look at the slide again. Okay, there it is. By how much you cooperate to keep this institution together after I am gone. I mean, because the institution, that's the power. The power is being together in an institute. You got to be organized. And as soon as you get organized, there is bureaucracy. Oh no, but what can you do? You need to manage it somehow. So that came from Bhakti Vinod and Bhakti Siddhanta. So Prabhupada he knows we need an institution to spread it all over the world. It's not the work of one guru and God family. It's the work of many combined together. Sankirtan, as Prabhupada said.
Yeah, so the argument, what I hear, is that if they don't follow Srila Prabhupada, then why should I cooperate with them?
Yeah. Did I tell you the Hawaii story about that?
About what they found in the fridge? Or?
No. Oh, that's New York. Okay, 1975. I like to answer by telling stories because if the story is apt, okay, so there was two kind of feisty devotees. They were both astrologers, actually, and they're, I think one might have passed away, but one's doing better. Anyway, so they came to Prabhupada in Hawaii, in Prabhupada's rooms, which I know well because I lived in Hawaii for 10 years, and my service was to take care of Prabhupada's rooms. Very nice. And so they were with Prabhupada in his rooms at his low table, it was typical Prabhupada setup. And there were GBCs there. And these devotees said the same thing. Srila Prabhupada, we follow you, but we can't work with that. Right? So the GBCs were sitting right there, and the complainers were right there. So here's Prabhupada's way of resolving it. So if I say to you to do what they say, according to the GBC, will you do it? And they said, no. So there you go. It's a surrender to cooperate, to live in an institution. Prabhupada does want, what did he say? Independence, the thoughtful people, what's the phrase? Independently thoughtful devotees. He wants that. But he doesn't want that those independently thoughtful devotees to be so independently thoughtful that they can't work with the institution. And, sometimes the institution will decide things that we think is off the wall. Okay, well that'll be seen in time. If it's really off the wall, if it's really going to take us away from Prabhupada's mood and mission, then it won't work. And they'll change their resolution because they're sincere too. Just that sometimes they just don't get it, right? Don't get it right. So it's a real challenge to have a strong governing body with authority and good example. At least now, in those days, there was no such thing as a GBC. You've heard of the GBC college? There's an institution, a school now, training GBCs. What a concept, right? Training. Of course, but there was the only training in Prabhupada's time was Prabhupada would, he would tell them things, and then they'd make mistakes, and then he would correct them, and then they'd make more mistakes, and then. So by the time Prabhupada, left, he was still in anxiety. Is this movement going to go on? Because he was managing right up to the end. We were too neophyte. Even his trusted leaders were too neophyte to manage it, We'll see that in the next lesson. Yeah. And then sometimes the argument is, you probably heard this one too. Prabhupada was living outside the Gaudiya Math. They didn't follow Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's wishes to make a GBC, by the way, that was his wish. They just had competing camps to who was going to replace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, totally bogus. So as Prabhupada said, they all fell down because they weren't authorized. So the argument is, Prabhupada was aloof, so I'm aloof now. It's really a bogus argument because at least we have a governing body sincerely trying, as you know from your Hridaya Chaitanya Prabhu. And you think Hridaya Chaitanya Prabhu is like those bogus camps that were trying to replace Bhaktisiddhanta? No, he's a very sincere servant of Srila Prabhupada's movement. So the GBCs are very sincere, and over the years they've seen the need for help, and they've created the Sabha, which I'm part of, and they've created deputies, and they created this Shastric Advisory Committee, which Urmila chairs. Urmila. So, it's a work in progress. So again, be the change you want to see in ISKCON. Don't just complain. Be critical. Think critically, but don't be destructively critical. And just as Prabhupada said earlier in this lesson, make factions and deviate. Don't do that. Don't make factions and deviate. That's easier said than done. Sometimes Prabhupada's solution, if leaders couldn't get along, but they were sincere, but they just couldn't get along. Those modes just... So Prabhupada would send them to different sides of the world. So you go over here, and you go way over there. And they flourished because they had their own turf, right? And they did things their way for Prabhupada. One GBC complained once that, this other GBC, Srila Prabhupada, is not sending anything to your book fund in his zone. And of course, the complainer was sending the most of anybody, and he was kind of proud. I mean, he was sincere, but the pride came up. So Prabhupada wrote him back and put him in his place. He said, yes, he's not sending anything to the book fund because I've given him something different to do. I've told him to develop plain living and high thinking and to build 7 temples on 7 hills in West Virginia. Can you do that? No. No. Yeah. Yeah, so we have to become like the bee and not like the fly, and go for the and go for the honey, the nectar, the best parts of a person, and not. It's our tendency in Kali Yuga. It's to go for the faults. Yeah. So it's a real challenge. But what else is there to do but try to rise to the challenge?
It's still
It's-
there.
Hmm?
It's still there, everything.
What's still there?
The whole institution.
Yeah, we're still here, and we got a lot of challenges, but we're working on it.
What are the challenges?
I'll save the biggest one for the last lesson. Oh no, wait, it's the next lesson, is it? Let's see, 9 and 10. Fictional Prabhupadas. No, the last one, called Your Srila Prabhupada. Yeah, it's right at the end, actually. And I mentioned that book, Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of ISKCON. It's in the summary of that book that the GBC published, written by Ravindra Swarup Prabhu, and very nicely elaborating on Srila Prabhupada's position as the founder Acharya. Really thorough dissertation on it. I told Ravindra, because he wrote that in 2014, and I was traveling around with these starting in 2012 or end of 2011. I said, your book is great, Prabhu, but it's written on a very high level of discourse. It's like reading a PhD dissertation. I mean, it's not easy to follow. It's academic, I mean, it's spiritual, but the language is academic. So I said, you know what I'm doing? I'm presenting the same thing, and I'm presenting a Prabhupada experience, but I'm just using everyday language, so the devotees can understand what I'm talking about. And he said, yeah, that's good. So, yeah. Okay, all right. So that's one. Is that all right or no? Did you have it? Okay. 12 more minutes. To love is to cooperate. Yes, Prabhu, the mic.
Yeah, since I said independently thoughtful, I feel obliged to contextualize it a little bit.
Yeah,
Coming
good.
from Amsterdam, it's probably the most misquoted thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
30 years in this. So the context is that Prabhupada wrote it to. I don't know exactly, because it's a long time when I researched.
Can anybody do it? I can do it right now.
But I know it's still the essence of it.
Okay.
He wrote it to temple presidents.
Oh, okay.
And it was something about that they had to go to the mayor and ask for permission.
Oh, right, yeah.
And he said, I want independently thoughtful men. So it had nothing to do with anything of authority. Like, I can go against the president or the GBC. It has nothing to do with that. It is just to do with, like you said with New Vrindavan. Go to the farmers. Ask them. That's what he meant with independently thoughtful men. They asked something about growing vegetables, and they asked it to Prabhupada, and he said, why don't you ask the farmers around you, your neighbors? They know the land.
Right.
Why don't you ask them? So he expected this man to be intelligent and cooperate with the local people, and like that be independently thoughtful, not that they ask everything to the GBC and everything to Prabhupada, but that they figured things out for themselves and became, responsible.
Okay, the context was, I think it was December 22nd, 1972, the letter to Karundar, about forget this centralizing, that one, famous letter. Forget this centralization, this will ruin our movement. Yes, it might be troublesome for every single temple to go and separately incorporate your local temple, but this will teach you how to deal with the local authorities and stand on your own 2 feet and learn how to do all these things. Don't just, and then you're responsible for fundraising for your own place. Not that you go begging from some central authority for funds, that you're some dependent, that just begging like that. The only thing Prabhupada centralized was the BBT. That's all. Yeah, and also the management in India was different than anywhere else. He made, I think in Bombay, Bombay, right, is the where the authority resides with Indian management, GBC. Yeah. So independently thoughtful means you learn how to do things. You learn how to preach in the world. This is the real world, and you got to learn how to deal with it. As Prabhupada incorporated 26 Second Avenue, he got that attorney, Stephen Goldsmith, who was sympathetic to spiritual non-profits, and he drew up the incorporation papers, and they did it legally, and they were good. They were bona fide. Before we give you a chance, anybody else before we give Prabhu that? All right, you got it.
Yes. Yes, so we find in the nowadays societies, you have always two fighting with each other. It means the one who is employing and the one who is unemployed, like the unions.
Oh, management and workers.
Right?
Yeah.
So there are two groups and they're always trying to cooperate, isn't it?
Trying to work together.
Like to work together to get things solved, to get things done.
Yeah.
So in ISKCON you have also authorities, and you have people who work under them. So isn't it that to smoothen the cooperation, it's important that both of the parties are listening to each other?
Sure.
And there should be a representative of each of the parties that are sorting things out. Like in the unions, you have the union leader, and on the other side, you have the leader that represents all the corporations.
And you have a
So
mediator too, that they agree to the mediator.
Yeah, they have to agree. And also there should be transparency. So these kind of elements are necessary.
Bargaining in good faith. Not that you're trying to deceive the other side or something.
Transparency, yeah, it's like open books, it's published minutes and things like that.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah.
So that smoothens the cooperation. So therefore I think to cooperate is important. But the ingredients to be able to cooperate should be there, because you cannot demand cooperation if it has to come from one side.
Yeah, right. Cooperation doesn't mean the leader says, so, yeah, just cooperate with me. Just do what I say. What's the problem? No, that's not. You see, Prabhupada said, the materialist, let's look at that quote. This is Unity and Diversity quote. Yeah. The materialist cannot come into agreement with varieties. So, the collective bargaining that goes on between, management and labor, they're both out for sense gratification. There's no higher purpose that they're both trying to achieve together. I mean, there is a purpose that they want to produce, say, automobiles. That's where unions started in America, actually, in the auto industry. My god sister Lekha Shravanti's father, Walter Reuther, he was the Gandhi of the labor movement. He was very austere. Anyway, that's a whole history. She wrote a book about it. And but they have this goal of producing cars. But Henry Ford started the whole thing. The car. He didn't invent the internal combustion engine, but he was the one that figured out how to mass produce cars. The Model T Ford. So, but he was producing them, and then he was just, the people who were building the cars, the workers, he was treating them like slaves, paying them hardly anything, and the working conditions were terrible, and so the workers rebelled, and they made a union. It was really bloody and everything. So their goal was, management's goal was to make as much money as possible and to minimize costs, even at the expense of the lives of the workers. So then the workers came in and, they said, no, you can't treat us like machines, we're people. So then they had to come into some agreement. So even in the material sense, the workers have needs, interests, concerns, and so does the management, and they have to work together to make it work. Now in Krishna consciousness, the higher purpose is to please Krishna, and everybody's a Vaishnava, so all the Vaishnavas have to be respected. It's like we say, Vanchakalpa, Turubhyascha. So Prabhupada's saying the materialists cannot come into agreement with varieties, because everybody always has their own agendas and self-interest, and it's so hard to even work out these contracts. But if we keep Krishna in the center, then there will be agreement in varieties. This is called unity in diversity. So we might have different ideas. Agreement in varieties means we might have different ideas of how to serve Krishna, but we trust those intentions of each other, that when this devotee says something that I don't agree with it, but I trust his intention. His intention is not just to do something for sense gratification, but his intention is to actually do it that way because he truly thinks that's the better way to serve Krishna. So, that's called unity in diversity. We have different ways of doing things, that's all. And if we still can't get along, then Prabhupada would separate. Okay, you work over here, you work over here. But don't stop serving Krishna. I am therefore suggesting that all our men, Prabhupada said this should be the theme of every GBC meeting in Mayapur. Every AGM, every annual general meeting, this should be discussed, how to have unity and diversity. Yeah, he said that in 73. Right. Because Prabhupada knew that was the key to keeping this movement together. And Prabhupada, he provides the unity amidst the diversity. He's the one we all have in common that we're trying to please. So if we remember that, then we have a chance of not just... Because the Kali Yuga, the forces of Kali, they try to tear us apart and make us, divide us and make us at each other's throats. But unity and diversity mean we find a common cause in pleasing Srila Prabhupada and Lord Krishna.
But in case of Ford, I also...
We have 1 minute.
In case of Ford, it was also that the employees could not afford the car they were building. And when Mr. Ford was convinced that it was better to pay them more, and so they could also afford a car.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, even in the material sense, right? So everybody has interests, concerns, but in spiritual life, our interest and concern is how we can help each other serve Krishna from our different positions. And tomorrow, before the, there's the Jai Sri Sri Radha Gopinath. I'll just read the transition. Transition. Before we look at different ways to access and develop our individual loving relationship with Srila Prabhupada, in the next lesson, we'll identify and dispel some unconscious misconceptions we may have about him. It's called Fictional Prabhupada. So that's tomorrow morning, 7:45. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Altijd die afzetten en dan lang genoeg doen. Dan houdt het uit.
Altijd goed te weten.
Je zal nog lang blijven.
Ja, ja, ik moet nog even naar huis liggen, maar ik moet even terug naar de sleep.
Maar je zal nog lang blijven, want je vraagt zulke dingen.
Ja, ja, ik ben al van plan.
Yeah, depends on what kind of laundry it is. If it's laundry that's difficult to dry, then we need a dryer. If it's only like cotton, okay, you can come back Wednesday morning?
I put up a note on the temple, but still I need the clothes.
Yes. You need all the clothes back. Tuesday. We leave Wednesday or 10.
Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj ki jai. Nanda Koti Vaishnava ki jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se karo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Gita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavinda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shalakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Shri Mayapur Dham ki jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Shri Navadvip Dham ki jai. Shri Radhadesh Dham ki jai. Gangani Yamuna Mayi Saraswati Mayi ki jai. Bhakti Devi Tulsi Mahani ki jai. Shri Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru Gauranga Guru Shri Prabhupada. Namaste Narashinagaya.
Namaste Narashinhaya.
So.
Morning. Last
Morning
session.
is 4:30 first night.
First 30, Tulsi.
You find the list, take off your shoes, there's a list of programs.
10 ਮਿੰਟ ਤੱਕ 9 ਤੋਂ 9 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਾ ਲਾਸਟ ਦਰਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲਾਉਂਦੇ ਸਵੇਰੇ 4:30 ਵਜੇ ਤੁਲਸੀ ਰਾਤ ਨੂੰ ਜਗਾਉਂਦੇ
This is morning, that is like
4 o'clock.
Before 4:30 it starts, and then 5 o'clock is actually if you go downstairs, you will find that there's the Mahaprasad from the 7th of Hare and the devotee kitchen. You can ask. Yeah? Hare Krsna. Krishna, 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 Hare.
Krishna, 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 Hare.
Krishna, 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 Hare. Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna, Krishna, Krishna, Krishna, Krishna, Hare.
Krishna, 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 Rakshama.
Krishna, 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 Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna, Krishna, Krishna, Krishna, Krishna, Pahima.
Krishna, 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 Pahima.
Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rakshama.
Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rakshama.
Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Pahima.
Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Pahima.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jayo Prabhupada, Jayo Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. So, today we are reading from, what's it called? Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it's written by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Proof here. Alright. So this is a summary study. Then came to our Srimad Bhagavatam. And we are in a very nice chapter. We can say that every day. And today this very nice chapter is called The Delivery of the Message of Krishna to the Gopis. So who is delivering this message? Who is delivering the message? Yes, somebody is delivering the message of Krishna to the Gopis. You learned from yesterday? No, I was not there yesterday. You don't remember that it was Uddhava who was looking exactly like Krishna? Oh, no. Uddhava. Guru. No, Uddhava. Uddhava. Yeah, Uddhava. Since Krishna is absolute, his so-called unkind activities are relished as his kind activities. Therefore, saintly persons and great devotees like the gopis cannot give up Krishna in any circumstances. It was just after Srimati Radharani was saying how unreliable Krishna was. You remember that? He's so unreliable, this blackish boy. No, okay, so that was yesterday. Therefore, saintly persons and great devotees like the gopis cannot give up Krishna in any circumstances. Lord Chaitanya therefore prayed, Krishna, you are free and independent in all respects. You can either embrace me or crush me under your feet, whatever you like. You may make me broken-hearted by not letting me see you throughout my whole life, but you are my only object of love. So in my opinion, Srimati Radharani continued, no one should hear about Krishna, because as soon as a drop of nectar of his transcendental activities is poured into the air, one immediately rises above the dualities of attraction and rejection. Being completely freed from the contamination of material attachment, one gives up attachment for this material world, including family, home, wife, children, and everything else materially dear to every person. Being deprived of all material acquisitions, one makes his relatives and himself unhappy. Then he wanders in search of Krishna, either as a human being or in other species of life, even as a bird, and voluntarily accepts the profession of a mendicant. It's very difficult to actually understand Krishna, his name, his qualities, his form, his pastimes, his paraphernalia, and his entourage. Srimati Radharani continued to speak to the black messenger of Krishna. Please do not talk anymore about this Krishna. It is better to talk about something else. We're all already doomed, like the black-spotted she-deer in the forest, who are enchanted by the sweet musical vibrations of the hunter. In the same way, we have been enchanted by the sweet words of Krishna, and by thinking of the rays of his toenails again and again, we are becoming more and more lusty for his association. Therefore, I request you not to talk of Krishna anymore. These talks of Radharani with the bumblebee messenger, including her accusing Krishna in so many ways, and at the same time expressing her inability to give up talking about him, are signs of the topmost transcendental ecstasy called Mahabhava. The ecstatic Mahabhava manifestation is possible only in the persons of Radharani and her associates. Great acharyas like Srila Rupa Goswami and Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakura have analyzed these Mahabhava speeches of Srimati Radharani and described the different varieties such as Udgurna, or bewilderment, and Jalpa Pratijalpa, or talking in different ways. These are the signs of Ujjvala Ras, or the brightest jewel of love of God. I have to make it a little longer.
While Radharani was talking with the bee and the bee was flying hither and thither, it all of a sudden disappeared from her sight. She was in full mourning due to separation from Krishna and felt ecstasy by talking with the bee. But as soon as the bee disappeared, she became almost mad, thinking that the messenger bee might have returned to Krishna to inform him all about her talking against him. Krishna must be very sorry to hear it, she thought. In this way she was overwhelmed by another type of ecstasy. In the meantime, the bee, flying hither and thither, appeared before her again. She thought, Krishna is still kind to me. In spite of the messengers carrying disruptive messages, he is so kind that he is again sent the bee to take me to him. Srimati Radharani was very careful this time not to say anything against Krishna. My dear friend, I welcome you, she said. Krishna is so kind that he has again sent you. Krishna is so kind and affectionate to me that he has fortunately sent you back in spite of your carrying my message against him. All good fortune, my dear friend. So all good fortune to you, my dear friend. Now you may ask from me whatever you want. I shall give you anything because you are so kind to me. You have come to take me to Krishna because he is not able to come here, being surrounded by new girlfriends in Mathura. But you are a tiny creature. How can you take me there? How will you be able to help me meet Krishna while he is taking rest there with the goddess of fortune and embracing her to his chest? Never mind. Let us forget all these things about my going there or sending you. Please let me know how Krishna is faring in Mathura. Tell me if he still remembers his foster father, Nanda Maharaj, his affectionate mother, Yashoda, his cowherd friends, and his poor friends like us, the gopis. I'm sure he must sometimes sing about us, who served him just like maidservants, without any payment. Is there any possibility that Krishna will come back and places a guru, send his hand on our heads? Please put all these inquiries to Krishna.
Uddhava was standing near, and he heard Radharani talking in this way. If she had become almost mad for Krishna, as if she had become almost mad for Krishna. He was exceedingly surprised at how the gopis were accustomed to taking of Krishna constantly in that topmost ecstasy of Mahabhava love. He had brought a message in writing from Krishna, and now he wanted to present it before the gopis, just to pacify them. He said, "My dear gopis, your mission of human life is now successful. You are all wonderful devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, you are eligible to be worshipped by all kinds of people. You are worshipable throughout the three worlds because your minds are wonderfully absorbed in the thought of Vasudeva, Krishna. He is the goal of all pious activities and ritualistic performances, such as giving charity, rigidly following the austerity of vows, undergoing severe penances, and igniting the fire of sacrifice. He is the purpose behind chanting different mantras, reading the Vedas, controlling the senses, and concentrating the mind in meditation. These are some of the many ways of the many different processes for self-realization and attainment of perfection of life. But actually, they are meant only for realizing Krishna and dovetailing oneself in the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the last instruction of the Bhagavad Gita. Also, although there are description of different processes of self-realization, at the end, Krishna recommends that one give up everything and simply surrender to him. All other processes are meant for teaching one how to surrender ultimately unto the lotus feet of Krishna. The Bhagavad Gita also says that this surrendering process is completed by a sincere person after executing the processes of self-realization in wisdom and austerities for many births. Since the perfection of such austerity was completely manifested in the lives of the gopis, Uddhava was fully satisfied upon seeing their transcendental position. He continued, "My dear gopis, the mentality you have developed in relationship with Krishna is very, very difficult to attain, even for great sages and saintly persons. You have attained the highest perfectional stage of life. It is a great boon for you that you have fixed your minds upon Krishna and have decided to have Krishna only, giving up your families, homes, relatives, husbands, and children for the sake of the Supreme Personality. Because your minds are now fully absorbed in Krishna, the Supreme Soul, universal love has automatically developed in you. I think myself very fortunate that I have been favored by your grace to see you in this situation."
And Uddhava said that he had a message from Krishna. The gopis were more interested in hearing the message than in hearing about their exalted position. They did not very much like being praised for their high position. They showed their anxiety to hear the message of Uddhava. Hear the message Uddhava had brought from Krishna. Uddhava said, "My dear gopis, I am especially deputed to carry this message to you who are such great and gentle devotees. Krishna has specifically sent me to you because I am his most confidential servitor." Uddhava did not deliver to the gopis the written message brought from Krishna, but he personally read it to them. And the message was very gravely written, so that not only the gopis but all empiric philosophers might understand how pure love of God is intrinsically integrated with all the different energies of the Supreme Lord. From Vedic information it is understood that the Supreme Lord has multi-energies. Parasya Shaktir Vidaiva Sruyate. Also the gopis were such intimate personal friends of Krishna that while he was writing the message for them, he was so moved that he could not write distinctly. Uddhava is a student of Brihaspati and very sharp intelligence, so instead of handing over the written message, he thought it wise to read it personally and explain it to them. Uddhava continued, "These are the words of the personality of Godhead. My dear gopis, my dear friends, please know that separation between ourselves is impossible at any time, at any place, or under any circumstances, because I am all-pervading. This all-pervasiveness of Krishna is explained in the Bhagavad Gita in both the 9th and the 7th chapter. In the 9th chapter, Krishna is described as all-pervasive in his impersonal feature. Everything rests in him, but he is not personally present everywhere. And in the 7th chapter, it is stated that the 5 gross elements, earth, water, fire, air, and sky, and the 3 subtle elements, mind, intelligence, and ego, are all inferior energies. But there's another superior energy, which is called the living entity. The living entities are also directly part and parcel of Krishna, and therefore Krishna is both the material and the efficient cause of everything. He is always intermingled with everything as cause and effect. Not only the gopis, but all living entities are always inseparably connected with Krishna in all circumstances. The gopis, however, are perfectly and thoroughly in cognition of this relationship with Krishna, whereas the living entities under the spell of Maya, the illusory energy, are forgetful of Krishna and think themselves separate identities having no connection with him.
Love of Krishna or Krishna consciousness is therefore the perfection of real knowledge in understanding things as they are. Our minds can never be vacant. The mind is constantly occupied with some kind of thought. And the subject matter of such thought cannot be outside the 8 elements of Krishna's energy. One who knows this philosophical aspect of all thoughts is actually a wise man, and he surrenders unto Krishna. The gopis are the epitome of this perfectional stage of knowledge. They are not simple mental speculators. Their minds are always in Krishna. The mind is nothing but the energy of Krishna. Actually, any person who can think, feel, and will cannot be separated from Krishna, but the stage in which he can understand his eternal relationship with Krishna is called Krishna consciousness. The diseased condition in which he cannot understand his eternal relationship with Krishna is the contaminated stage of Maya. Since the gopis are on the platform of pure transcendental knowledge, their minds are always filled with Krishna consciousness. For example, as there is no separation between fire and air, there is no separation between Krishna and the living entities. When the living entities forget Krishna, they are not in their natural condition. As for the gopis, because they are always thinking of Krishna, they are on the absolute stage of perfection in knowledge. The so-called empiric philosophers sometimes think that the path of bhakti is meant for the less intelligent. But unless the so-called man of knowledge comes to the platform of bhakti, his knowledge is certainly impure and imperfect. Actually, the stage of forgetfulness of our eternal relationship with Krishna is separation. But that is also illusory because there is no such separation. The gopis were not situated in this illusory condition of life, so even from a philosophical point of view, for them there was no separation. Uddhava continued reading Krishna's message. Nothing is separate from me. The whole cosmic manifestation is resting on me and is not separate from me. Before the creation I was existing. This is confirmed in the Vedic literature. Eko Narayana Asin Na Brahma Neshana. Before creation, there was only Narayan. There was no Brahma and no Shiva. The whole cosmic manifestation is manipulated by the 3 modes of material nature. It is said that Brahma, the incarnation of the quality of passion, created this universe. Brahma is the secondary creator. The original creator is Narayan. This is confirmed by Shankaracharya. Narayana Paravakyatat. Narayan is transcendental beyond this cosmic manifestation. In this way, nothing within this cosmic manifestation is separate from Krishna, although Krishna's original form is not visible in everything.
Krishna creates, maintains, and annihilates the whole cosmic manifestation by expanding himself in different incarnations. Everything is Krishna, and everything depends on Krishna, but he is not perceived in the material energy, and therefore it is called Maya, or illusion. In the spiritual energy, however, Krishna is perceived at every step, in all circumstances. This perfectional stage of understanding is represented by the gopis. As Krishna is always aloof from the cosmic manifestation, although it is completely dependent on him, so a living entity is also completely aloof from his material conditioned life, although the material body has developed on the basis of spiritual existence. In the Bhagavad Gita, the whole cosmic manifestation is accepted as the mother of all of the living entities, and Krishna is the father. As the father impregnates the mother by injecting the living entity within the womb, Krishna injects all the living entities into the womb of the material nature. They come out in different bodies according to their different fruitive activities. But in all circumstances, the living entity is aloof from his material conditioned life. If we simply study our own bodies, we can understand how a living entity is always aloof from these bodily engagements. Every action of the body takes place by the interactions of the 3 modes of material nature. We can see at every moment many changes taking place in our bodies. But the spirit soul is aloof from all changes. One can neither create nor annihilate, nor interfere with the actions of material nature. The living entity is therefore entrapped by the material body and conditioned in three stages, namely while awake, asleep, and unconscious. The body acts throughout all the three conditions of life. The living entity is in sleep. In the sleep or dreaming conditions sees something as real, and when awake he sees the same thing as unreal. It is concluded, therefore, that under certain circumstances he accepts something as real, and under other circumstances he accepts the very same thing as unreal. This matter of subject or study for the empiric philosopher of the Sankhya or the Sankhya yogi. To come to the right conclusion, Sankhya yogis undergo severe austerities and penances, practicing control of the senses and renunciation. All these different ways of determining the ultimate goal of life are compared to rivers of Krishna, and Krishna is compared to the ocean. As the river flows down toward the ocean, all attempts for knowledge flow toward Krishna. After many births of endeavor, when one actually comes to Krishna, he attains the perfectional stage. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Krisho dikataras tesam avyakta sakta chittasam. All are pursuing the path of realizing me. But those who have adopted courses without any bhakti found their endeavor very troublesome. Krishna cannot be understood unless one comes to the point of bhakti.
Three paths are enunciated in the Bhagavad Gita: Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. Those who are too much addicted to fruitive activities are advised to perform actions which will bring them to Bhakti. Those who are addicted to the pursuit of empiric philosophy are also advised to act in such a way that they will realize Bhakti. Karma Yoga is therefore different from ordinary yoga, and Jnana Yoga is different from ordinary Jnana. Sorry?
Ordinary karma.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry, thinking. Alright. So I read it one more time. Karma Yoga is therefore different from ordinary karma, and Jnana Yoga is different from ordinary Jnana. Ultimately, as stated by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktyamam abhikyanati. Only through execution of devotional service can one understand Krishna. The perfectional state of devotional service was achieved by the gopis because they did not care to know anything but Krishna. It is confirmed in the Vedas. Kasmi bhagavo vikyate sarva idam vikyatam bhavatiti. This means that simply by knowing Krishna, one automatically acquires all other knowledge. Uddhava continued reading Krishna's message. Transcendental knowledge of the Absolute is no longer necessary for you. You were accustomed to loving me from the very beginning of your lives. Knowledge of the Absolute Truth is specifically required for persons who want liberation from material existence. But one who has attained love for Krishna is already on the platform of liberation, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita. Anyone engaged in unalloyed devotional service is to be considered situated on a transcendental platform of liberation. The gopis did not actually feel any pangs of material existence, but they felt the separation of Krishna. Krishna therefore said, "My dear gopis, to increase your super excellent love for me, I have purposely separated myself from you, so that you may be in constant meditation on me." The gopis are in perfectional states of meditation. Yogis are generally more fond of meditating than of executing devotional service to the Lord, but they do not know that the perfection of the yoga system is the attainment of devotion. This constant meditation on Krishna by the gopis is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita to be the topmost yoga. Krishna knew very well the philosophy, of the psychology of women. When a woman's beloved is away, she thinks of him more in meditation than when he is present before her. Krishna wanted to teach through the behavior of the gopis that one who is constantly entranced like the gopis surely attains his lotus feet. Lord Chaitanya taught people in general the method of Vipralamba Seva, which is the method of rendering service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead in feeling of separation. The 6 Goswamis also taught worship of Krishna in the feeling of the gopis in separation. The prayers composed by Srinivasacharya about the 6 of the Goswamis explain these matters very clearly. Srinivasacharya said that the Goswamis were always absorbed in the ocean of transcendental feelings in the mood of the gopis. When they lived in Vrindavan, they were searching for Krishna, crying, "Where are you, Krishna? Oh gopis, where are you? Where are you, Srimati Radharani?" They never said, "We have seen Radha and Krishna," and therefore our mission is fulfilled. Their mission remained always unfulfilled. They never met Radha and Krishna.
Krishna reminded the gopis that at the time of the rasa dance, these gopis could not join him for the rasa dance, for the rasa lila, gave up their bodies simply by thinking of him. Absorbed in Krishna consciousness by feeling separation is thus the quickest method for attainment of the lotus feet of Krishna. By the personal statement of Krishna, the gopis were convinced about the strength of feelings of separation. They were actually experiencing the supernatural separation. They're actually experiencing the supernatural method of Krishna worship, and were much relieved by understanding that Krishna was not away from them, but always with them. The gopis therefore received Uddhava very happily and began to speak as follows. We have heard that Krishna, the King Kamsa, who was always a source of trouble for the Yadu dynasty, has now been killed. This is good news for us. We hope, therefore, that the members of the Yadu dynasty are very happy in the association of Krishna, who can fulfill all the desires of his devotees. My dear Uddhava, kindly let us know whether Krishna sometimes thinks of us while in the midst of the highly enlightened society girls of Mathura. We know that the women and girls in Mathura are not village women. They are enlightened and beautiful. Their bashful smiling glances and other feminine features must be very pleasing to Krishna. We know very well that Krishna is always fond of the beautiful behavior of beautiful women. It seems therefore that he has been entrapped by the women of Mathura. My dear Uddhava, will you kindly let us know if Krishna sometimes remembers us while in the midst of other women? Another gopi inquired, does he remember that night in the midst of komuda flowers and moonlight when Vrindavan became exceedingly beautiful? Krishna is dancing with us and the atmosphere was charged with the sound of footbells. We exchanged pleasing conversation then. Does he remember that particular night? We remember that night and we feel separation. Separation from Krishna makes us agitated, as if there were fire in our bodies. Does he propose to come back to Vrindavan to extinguish that fire, just as a cloud appears in the sky to extinguish a forest fire by its downpour?
Another gopi said, Krishna has killed his enemy and he has victoriously achieved the kingdom of Kamsa. Maybe he is married with a king's daughter by this time and living happily among his kinsmen and friends. Therefore, why should he come to this village of Vrindavan? Another gopi said, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. the husband of the goddess of fortune, and he is self-sufficient. He has no business either with us, the girls in the Vrindavan forest, or with the city girls of Mathura. He is the great super soul. He has nothing to do with any of us, either here or there. Another gopi said, "It is an unreasonable hope for us to expect Krishna to come back to Vrindavan. We should try instead to be happy in disappointment." Even Pingala, the greatest prostitute, said that disappointment is the greatest pleasure. We all know these things, but it is very difficult for us to give up the expectation of Krishna's coming back. Who can forget a solitary conversation with Krishna, on whose chest the goddess of fortune always remains in spite of Krishna's not desiring her? My dear Uddhava, Vrindavan is the land of rivers, forests and cows. Here the vibration of the flute was heard, and Krishna, along with his elder brother Shri Balaram, enjoyed the atmosphere in our company. Thus the environment of Vrindavan constantly reminded us of Krishna and Balaram. On the land of Vrindavan are the impressions of his footprints, the residence of the goddess of fortune, and because of such signs, we cannot forget Krishna. The gopis further expressed that Vrindavan was still full of all opulence and good fortune. There was no scarcity or want in Vrindavan as far as material necessities were concerned. But in spite of such opulence, they could not forget Krishna and Balaram. Constantly remember various attractive features of beautiful Krishna, his walking, his smiling, his joking words. We all have become lost by the dealings of Krishna, and it is impossible for us to forget him. We always pray to him, exclaiming, "Dear Lord, dear husband of the goddess of fortune, dear Lord of Vrindavan, and deliverer of the distressed devotees. We have now fallen and merged into an ocean of distress. Please, therefore, come back to Vrindavan and deliver us from this pitiable condition."
Uddhava minutely studied the transcendental abnormal condition of the gopis in their separation from Krishna, and he thought it wise to repeat again and again all the pastimes they had enjoyed with him. Materialistic persons are always burning in a blazing fire of material miseries. The gopis were burning in a transcendental blazing fire due to separation from Krishna. The blazing fire exasperating the gopis, however, is different from the fire of the material world. The gopis constantly wanted the association of Krishna, whereas the materialistic persons constantly want the advantage of material comfort. It is stated by Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur that Krishna saved the cowherd boys from the blazing fire within a second, while their eyes were closed. Similarly, Uddhava advised the gopis that they could be saved from the fire of separation by closing their eyes and meditating on the activities of Krishna from the very beginning of their association with him. From the outside, the gopis could visualize all the pastimes of Krishna by hearing the descriptions of Uddhava, and from within, they could remember those pastimes. From the instructions of Uddhava, the gopis could understand that Krishna was not separate from them, as they were constantly thinking of Krishna. Krishna was also thinking of them constantly at Mathura. Uddhava's message and instructions saved the gopis from immediate death, and the gopis acknowledged the benedictions from Uddhava. Uddhava practically acted as the preceptor, spiritual master of the gopis, and in return they worshipped him as they would worship Krishna. It is recommended in the authoritative scriptures that the spiritual master be worshipped on the level of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because of being his very confidential servitor. And it's accepted by great authorities that the spiritual master is the external manifestation Krishna. The gopis were relieved from their transcendental burning condition by realizing that Krishna was with them. Internally, they remembered his association within their hearts, and externally, Uddhava helped them associate with Krishna by his conclusive instructions. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is described in the scriptures as Adhokshaja, which indicates that he is beyond the perception of all material senses. Although beyond the material senses, he is present in everyone's heart. At the same time, he is present everywhere by his all-pervasive feature of Brahman. One can realize all these three transcendental features of the Absolute Truth, Bhagavan, Personality of Godhead, Paramatma, the localized Supersoul, and the all-pervasive Brahman, simply by studying the conditions of the gopis in their meeting with Uddhava, as described in Srimad Bhagavatam.
It is said by Srinivasacharya that the 6 Goswamis were always merged in thoughts of the activities of the gopis. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has also recommended the gopis' method of worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead as super excellent. Srila Shukadev Goswami has also recommended that anyone who hears from the right source about the dealings of the gopis with Krishna and who follows the instructions laid down by the previous acharyas will be elevated to the topmost position of devotional service and be able to give up the lust of material enjoyment. All the gopis were solaced by the instruction of Uddhava, and they requested him to stay in Vrindavan for a few days more. Uddhava agreed to their proposal and stayed with them not only for a few days, but for a few months. He always kept them engaged in thinking of the transcendental message of Krishna and his pastimes, and the gopis felt as if they were experiencing direct association with Krishna. While Uddhava remained in Vrindavan, the inhabitants enjoyed his association. As they discussed the activities of Krishna, the days passed just like moments. Vrindavan's natural atmosphere with the presence of the river Yamuna, its nice orchards and trees, decorated with various fruits, Govardhan Hill, caves, blooming flowers, all combined to inspire Uddhava to narrate Krishna's pastimes. The inhabitants enjoyed Uddhava's association in the same way that they enjoyed the association of Krishna. Uddhava was attracted by the attitude of the gopis because they were completely attached to Krishna, and he was inspired by the gopis' anxiety for Krishna. He offered them his respectful obeisances and composed songs in praise of their transcendental qualities as follows. Among all the living entities who have accepted the human form of life, the gopis are super excellently successful in their mission. Their thought is eternally absorbed in the lotus feet of Krishna. Great sages, and we ourselves also try to be absorbed in meditation on the lotus feet of Krishna, but the gopis, having lovingly accepted the Lord, are automatically accustomed to this and do not depend on any yogic practice. The conclusion is that one who has attained the gopis' condition of life does not have to take birth as Lord Brahma, or be born in a Brahmana family, or be initiated as a Brahmana. Sri Uddhava confirmed Lord Krishna's statement in the Bhagavad Gita that one who takes shelter of him for the right purpose, be that person a Shudra, a woman, or a member of the low-grade family, will attain the highest goal of life. The gopis have set the standard of devotion for the whole world. One who follows in the footsteps of the gopis is constantly thinking of Krishna. By constantly thinking of Krishna, can attain the highest perfection in the stage of spiritual life. The gopis were born not of any high-cultured family, but of cowherd men. Yet they developed the highest love of Krishna, who is the Supersoul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the Supreme Brahman. For self-realization or God-realization, there is no need to take birth in a high family. The only thing needed is development of ecstatic love of God. For achieving perfection in Krishna consciousness, no qualification is required other than to be constantly engaged in the loving service of Krishna. the supreme nectar, the reservoir of all pleasure. The effect of taking up Krishna consciousness is just like that of drinking nectar, with or without one's knowledge. It will act. The active principle of Krishna consciousness will equally manifest itself everywhere. It does not matter how and where one has taken his birth. Krishna will bestow his benediction upon anyone who takes to Krishna consciousness without any doubt. So thank you for coming. It's nice to have your association, reading Krishna book. And thank you to Srila Prabhupada for writing such a wonderful book. I really appreciate it. Hare Krishna.
Hare Hare
Hare Shri Radha Gopinath ki, Shri Prabhupada ki, Jai.